I find myself more and more asking the one important question. I'd love an S-Class, but I don't like saloon cars, and I don't have a family, so I only really need two doors. What do I go for? Thankfully, Mercedes had an answer in their back catalogue, and it's sitting to my left. Hello and welcome to the C126 generation Mercedes S-Class. Yes, you join me with this rather suave and dashing 1991 Mercedes C126 generation 500 SEC. And today we're going to have a proper look around it, inside and out. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what many consider to be the ultimate in classic Mercedes. So let's crack on with it. 1979 saw a lot of interesting things. Technology was booming, colours were bright, and things were advancing. And that really showed in the cars that were coming out into the world. The car to my right, though a later example, is a prime example of this, the 126 generation of Mercedes S-Class. Taking over from the W116s that had introduced the S-Class name just a few years prior, the 126 had big shoes to fill, and it did that rather well. It was a classic Bruno Sacco design that was unmistakably Mercedes in their golden era. It was excellently suave, substantial, and incredibly timeless, I would argue. It was advanced, it was fast, and it was incredibly luxurious. It ticked all the boxes that kept the S-Class as the benchmark for what executive motoring should be, and as such, it's the most successful S-Class to date, with over 818,000 of them in one form or another being manufactured from 1979 right the way up until 1991. Now, the eagle-eyed among you will have noticed one rather important thing, a distinct lack of doors for an S-Class. I've only got two, and I've got a slanted back rather than a saloon body, and that's because this is an SEC. And what is that? An SEC, to put it simply, is a big old S-Class, but instead of a four-door saloon, you get a sporty two-door coupe. You see, Mercedes realised there was an overwhelming market share of people that wanted executive motoring, but didn't have kids that needed to be ferried around in the back, and didn't want to be chauffeur-driven. They wanted all the mod cons, all the luxury, but they wanted to be at the helm. And thus, the slightly more dynamic and driver-focused two-door pillarless coupe was born. The SEC wasn't introduced right at the beginning of 126 production. No, it wasn't until 1981 that this would be available in coupe form, but it would run right the way until the end in 1991 when production would end, though it did carry on until 1994 in South Africa. The Mercedes SEC ushered in a wave of new buyers for Mercedes, young professionals, bachelors, businessmen and businessmen women who wanted the mod cons, the amenities, all of the luxury, but didn't want a big wafty four-door package. To an extent, it created an entirely new subcategory of car, the executive coupe. Yes, you had your Rolls-Royce Corniche and things like that before, but this was an entirely different ballgame, and it's one that stands true and strong to this day. Enough about the outside. The inside's where you want to be on any S-Class, and this particular example is no exception to that. I've got lashings of really high quality upholstery and wood finish trim throughout. I've got incredibly comfortable seats front and rear, and a whole host of gubbins and tech. I've got a rear window blind, I've got heated seats, I've got aircon, I've got electric windows, I've got an electric sunroof, I've got electric memory seating. In 1991, the W126 or C126 Gent of Mercedes were the first to utilise this tech. It really was a thoroughly advanced car for its time. Even moving on to things like this. How can you not love that? I'm not reaching around for my seatbelt. The car will do it for me. Engines in your 126? Well, you weren't exactly sport for choice. You had a couple of petrol engines and that was it. It wasn't until these cars were modernised, updated and facelifted that a few more petrol engines were thrown into the mix and some diesels for good measure. They started at 2.8 litres and worked their way right the way up to 5.5 litre V8s with power ranging from high 100s to just shy of 300 at 295 brake horsepower. Now, all of these engines have their fans and followers, but it's this, the M117 5-litre V8 engine that everyone seems to love. This is the most highly regarded one in Mercedes circles. With 248 brake horsepower, 143 mile/hour top speed and 7.5 seconds to 60, it's a really good blend of performance, power and reliability, with a good 8-cylinder soundtrack to go along with it to an extent. Parts are still readily available as this engine was used in a variety of different models and made in very good numbers. You might have to wait a little bit for postage from Germany, but you can still get everything for these things. So, the 126. Let's see what it's like on the road.
It is incredibly quiet in here. That's the first thing that strikes me, the lack of noise. I'm doing 40 miles an hour and I could be forgiven for thinking the engine wasn't on. I know it's an S-Class and you sort of come to expect that, but this is a car that's over 30 years old and it's dead silent in here. It's such a lovely place to be. I really have just fallen and sunken into these seats. They are sublime, to say the least. Really, really comfy, and this being a low mileage car, they're very lightly worn, so the bolsters are still holding me really well. Obviously, as you can see behind, there's a little bit of deterioration to the headliner, but if that's all I've got to worry about, I'm not too fussed. Despite being an absolutely gargantuan thing, it really is a vast old bus. It's very manoeuvrable and very usable on a day-to-day basis. Steering is light, brakes are easy, there's plenty of power to get out of its own way, and this being a pillarless coupe, visibility is really, really good. I've got oceans of glass around me, which make life really quite easy when you get out on the road or for things like parking, or if I was to take this into the city. I mean, I've just put my foot down there and got up to the speed limit, of course, and there was just no engine noise whatsoever. I've got 5-litre V8 in front of me, a really, really good big thumping engine, and it just doesn't make any noise. It's quite disorienting to an extent. I know that's what an S-Class is all about, but it does feel very weird when you put your foot down and for all intents and purposes nothing happens. There's no fanfare, it just sort of does its job very sedately. What a wonderful thing this car is. I've never had much love or adoration for the W or C126 gen of Mercedes. I think because they sold so many of them, you tend to see them absolutely everywhere. They become almost commonplace to an extent, so my head was never really turning for one. But in recent years, they've aged really very gracefully and sort of morphed into this classic, modern, classic Mercedes that I would love to own myself. I would certainly have one of these 500 SECs, but I think by the time I'd look to get one, they're going to be astronomical in value. They really are going up already, and when you spend some time with one, especially inside one on the road, you can see why this is such a good, usable, modern, classic car. It's got everything you could possibly need in here. The ride is unbeatable. It is benchmark for what a luxury coupe should be. I've got plenty of power. On a run you get decent MPG as well. There's very little not to like in here. 126 Mercedes 500 SEC. What do I think? What are my thoughts? To be frank, I think this is a stupidly good car. The 126 generation for me personifies the S-Class, and a car like this really is case in point. It's aged really gracefully like a fine wine. As I said in the driving portion of this video, I didn't used to give these a second look. There were quite a lot of them on the road and they just did nothing for me. And I think that was the case with a lot of people. And in recent years, we've sort of all gone, wow, that's actually very nice. What a cool thing. It's rapidly becoming one of the most sought after modern classic Mercedes. So I'd say get yourself into one while you can, because values are just doing one thing, and that's going up. There's a couple of things to look for. The main one, like all Mercedes of this era, is rust. There's a little bit creeping in here and there on this particular car, but if you find one that's been well stored and well looked after, it will look after you. These things will do masses of miles. I've seen them well into the 200,000s of miles. Personally, I'd avoid diesel ones. I think they're a little bit sluggish, a little bit slow, and not that rewarding to drive. If you're going to get a diesel one, get your average 4-door saloon. The coupe really does deserve a petrol. The slightly smaller 6 cylinders are very good engines, but for me, this 5-litre V8 is exactly where it's at. It's incredibly well balanced. It suits a car like this so well. It's reliable, it's quiet, but it has a good level of power. There's very little not to like with a car like this. It's a pillarless coupe. It's incredibly stylish. It's got so many amenities on the inside. I can't help but love it. Thank you very much for watching the video review of this absolutely epic German supercruiser. I do hope you've enjoyed. Remember, if you like this sort of thing, please check out our other video reviews.